With the release of Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings, we now have 12 solo origin movies inside of the MCU list. So today I thought it was time for me to stop and rank all 12 solo origin films inside of the MCU list, ranked from the worst to the best, starting off with Iron Man all the way to Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. Please know that everything that I will say in this video is just my very own opinion. Hey everyone, SW Nation here, and you are free to comment down below your ranking of all 12 origin films inside of the MCU, or you could just do your favorite, or you can do all of the MCU films. It does not matter. That being said, please don't forget to check out that Twitter. It's going to pop up on your screen right now. Don't forget to check out that Marvel playlist. That link is going to pop up on your screen up above. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get right into our ranking. Kicking off my list at number 12 for me has got to go to The Incredible Hulk. Now, I don't think that The Incredible Hulk is a terrible film. I just watched it last night. I had a really fine time with it. I mean, this is the time that we get to see Hulk actually Hulk out. He gets to punch Abomination with police cars as boxing gloves. Like, that's cool to me. This is true Hulk. So he's able to, trash Harlem, and he's able to rampage around a university. But one of the things about it is the fact that it's not the origin story of Hulk. Is actually more of a continuation of that. We get the origin story, so the movie kind of cheats a little bit by giving us the origin story in the opening credits, so we can just skip past all of the gamma radiation stuff and just go right into the story. So it's not really an origin story, more of a continuation of that. But the reason why I have it down here lower is because that continuation is still kind of boring. It is the black sheep of the MCU, and at the same time, the whole movie is about Bruce Banner not wanting to turn into the one thing that everybody wants him to turn into. I don't have a big problem with that, but I know a lot of people have some very big problems about that. Just for me, I would rather watch something else. But if I'm watching The Incredible Hulk, I'm not just going to turn off my brain. I'm going to sit down and enjoy myself like I did last night. At number 11 is Captain Marvel. As an origin story, it's an alright one. The only reason why I say it like that is because we're not really that connected to Carol Danvers just yet. Even in the rest of the films that she's appeared in, spoilers for Shang-Chi, she's inside of Shang-Chi, and she just leaves. In Endgame, she just leaves. So we're not really that connected to Captain Marvel yet, because as a character, she didn't even know much about herself. She had amnesia. While she's discovering herself, we kind of feel a little bit distant because she doesn't know about herself. She doesn't know why she fights. It's never clarified inside of the film why she fights. I just think as an origin story, we get the bare minimum for Carol Danvers. We just don't get as much to her character. Kicking off the top 10 list for me has got to go to AntMan. AntMan is a difficult one for me, mainly because I do like the story of Scott Lang trying to prove himself to his father, an ex-con turned hero. I like that story. I like the fact that he's just getting out of prison and then he almost goes right back for doing the exact same thing that he went to the first time, and then he saves the world by doing the exact same thing that sent him to prison. I like how that comes full circle inside of the film, but the character of Scott Lang doesn't really change. Like, he barely changes the moment he gets out of prison. His whole thing is like, hey, I'm going to do better. I want to do better for my daughter, man. I got a daughter to take care of. He even goes to work at Baskin Robbins. I think that the character of Scott Lang ends the movie in the same place he started the movie off with. The only thing that's different is the fact that he now has new, powerful friends, and he has an Ant-Man suit. Number 9 is Black Widow. Black Widow cheats a little bit, just like Incredible Hulk does, by having her origin story be in the first sequence of the film and also having it inside of that montage. That sequence, that montage, loved it. Loved it about the movie. I love the movie Black Widow. I know a lot of people just like it. I know a lot of people hate it. I loved Black Widow. So with her and her origin, they only have it in the sequence, so they cheat a little bit at that. And then throughout the rest of the movie, we're back in 2016. So this is the first film of Phase 4, and we're going backwards to 2016. So I feel like this is more of an origin story for Yelena Belova, but it doesn't do a great job of being an origin story, air quotation marks, for Natasha Romanoff. It doesn't do a great job at that. As a solo film, yes, but we're talking about origin films. We're talking about stories of becoming. Natasha doesn't change throughout this entire film. That's a big problem for an origin story. But I know this is not an origin story. This is a solo movie. It still is kind of an origin story. At number 8 is Doctor Strange. The greatest thing about Dr. Stephen Strange is that his character is very formulaic inside of the film. The film is one of the most processed MCU put through the MCU formula template there is. I mean, it's unique, it's weird, it's crazy, it's bonkers, but at the same time, Stephen Strange's origin is pushed through that MCU template a lot. That's why it's lower here, because I've seen this story before. The story of a rich guy, losing something that he loves, or, having a realization that he should do better in the world, realizes that it's not just about him, so he fights for good. That's basically the origin story of Tony Stark. But inside of this film, we do get a different character spin on that. It's not about a man using his intelligence to build him a metal suit to get out of captivity. It's really about a man opening his mind, expanding his mind to different possibilities, and thinking outside of the box on different things. So I like that aspect about it. It just feels very formulaic, and Stephen Strange deserved to have a story that wasn't pushed through the MCU template. At number 7 is Thor. I love the film Thor. I love this movie, but in my MCU rankings, I can't put it higher. I can't put it up higher because other movies I enjoy more, other movies I might put on more, but as an origin story, this film is up high for me. As an origin story, this film could have been cracking the top 5 if it wasn't for my 6 and my number 5. But I believe that Thor is such a great movie, and I love it. I don't care how boring you think it is. The grand story, the grand origin story of Thor learning humanity, learning humility on Earth. Because for the most of the movie, we don't see God level Thor. We see a human guy. We see a human Chris Hemsworth on Earth. The only problem is that Chris Hemsworth doesn't seem as full of himself in the role of Thor yet as he does in later films. So whereas his origin story is big and grand and I love it, Chris Hemsworth does not feel sure of himself in the role yet. At number 6 for me has got to go to Spiderman Homecoming. Yeah, I'm cheating a little bit. This is not an origin story. This should be down at the bottom of the list with the rest of the films, just like Black Widow in there as such. This is not an origin story, but it is a story of becoming. It does cheat a little bit because his origin story, semi-origin story, was already inside of Captain America Civil War, but we already know Spider-Man origin story, so it's just a continuation of that, just like how Incredible Hulk is. Whereas this one is different. It's different because we get to see this world of the MCU through the eyes of a teenager. Spider-Man is now in the world where Iron Man is flying above his head and Hulk is smashing cars outside of his window. Spider-Man lives in a world like that. He wants to be up there with the big guys. I think the story of Spider-Man becoming his own man inside of this film works for me on so many levels, because that shows maturity and that shows growth from that kid that was just so eager to be with Tony Stark and the rest of the Avengers in the beginning of the film, for him to then decline Tony Stark's offer at the end of the film. I thought all of that was pretty sweet for me. Kicking off my top 5 list for me has got to go to the newest MCU installment, Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. I really do love this Shang-Chi guy, and maybe that's partial to me loving Simu Liu. I mean, leading up to this film, I told all my friends, I told everybody, this movie's going to be fire. Most of them didn't believe me. Some of them hopped on the hype train with me. Simu Liu, I said, dude, Simu Liu is just a fire dude. You guys can even go to my tweets. I'm like, dude, Simu Liu is just so cool. I was very excited for this film. Went into it, had an amazing time in the theater with my friends. Just had a blast. Fantastic film. The origin of Shang-Chi works a lot better for the story that they were trying to tell. I like his love and compassion for his mother, but I also love his complicated relationship with his father, and all of that is crucial for his origin of him becoming the man that he is supposed to be for the MCU going forward. Throughout the entire film, he tries so hard to run away from his father, run away from his past, but he can't do that because at the end of the day, he still fights like his father. He still is his father's child, until we get to the end where he starts fighting like his mother's child. So we get a story of becoming, but we also get a pretty sweet martial arts film inside of the process. And number 4 for me has got to go to Black Panther. It's not an origin film. Another cheat of mine. It's not an origin film. It's a solo movie. It's a standalone movie. But I like this one a lot more than Shang-Chi. mainly because it is this grand Shakespearean tale about a king and his kingdom. And the king has to make tough decisions, have to make difficult decisions while also being the hero, the Black Panther. I thought all of that was pretty great. Him being the ruler of a nation, but also him being a superhero. That right there is something that's just so Shakespearean, that's just so great, that I love about this film. The action, the combat is not as great as Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi has him in the action. Shang-Chi has him in this epic story. But I think in thematic elements, this film, its origin story for the character of T'Challa, its solo story for the character of T'Challa, is so thematically rich. It is one of the most thematically rich films inside of the entire comic book genre. Black Panther is a film that I would not put on as much, but I gotta say, its themes and how they handle the origin of T'Challa and even Killmonger in such Shakespearean and elegant ways, I love it. Kicking off my top 3 list for me has got to go to Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie is not really a solo film. It's not really an origin story. But it kind of is an origin story of the Guardians of the Galaxy out of all of them. So I counted it on this list. Originally, this was just going to be in a ranking for team-ups. But then I realized that wouldn't be a fair ranking to Eternals because Avengers will win all day. So no matter how good Eternals might be, Avengers is going to win. But inside of Guardians of the Galaxy, I love it a lot because we're getting 5 damaged people. Well, maybe 4 excluding Groot. So we're getting 4 damaged people. And all of them are coming together to learn from each other, learning to share pain, learning to share grief. All of it is great. So as an origin story for the Guardians of the Galaxy, as an origin story for these individual characters, it's not just about Peter Quill, it's not just about Drax, it's not just about Rocket Raccoon, it's about the entire group. And it's about all of them learning from one another, learning to share pain with each other. That's just so emotionally resonant, but also very mature. In a sense, all of it works. I think Black Panther, Shang-Chi, and Guardians of the Galaxy have such mature themes that just elevates the origin story, that just elevates the solo outing for these characters a lot more. My runner-up at number 2 for me has got to go to Captain America, the First Avenger. I think a lot of people really underappreciate how great this film actually is. I think the first half is some of the greatest things that we've ever seen inside of the MCU. The story of Steve Rogers becoming Captain America, and that's what it's all about. His origin story is some of the best stuff inside of the MCU because essentially he is the face of the MCU. Doesn't mean that he's the best MCU character, but Captain America is the face of the MCU, and seeing his origin inside of this film, seeing what type of character Steve Rogers is, not a perfect soldier, but a good man. I love that analogy. All of it works. The story also makes you want to be a little patriotic because Steve Rogers is this scrawny kid that wants to do everything in his power to join the war and to fight for his country because he feels as though, why should other people lay down their lives for me and I'm not doing the same for my country? And I think that it even gets more enhanced by the production value of it all, by it being set in the 1940s. It's a little bit more old-fashioned. We're just having an old-fashioned origin story with a great character that is flawed but does the right thing always. But coming in at my number 1 has got to go to the original MCU film, Iron Man. The first MCU film, Iron Man, is still the best origin story inside of the entirety of the MCU, mainly because Tony Stark is just such a likable jerk. Like, he's just such a likable jerk, but in the end, it comes full circle because he learns to be a little bit more selfless and a lot more heroic and a lot more humble. And I think all of that works because we can see it happening throughout the film. It doesn't have the weight of the MCU on his shoulders, so we could just tell a singular story about a man fighting his demons, about a man who is trying to correct his past. It's just so great. That origin story is just so great to me, and a lot of people actually underappreciate how vital the first Iron Man film is to the rest of the MCU. And also, Robert Downey Jr. just essentially plays himself as a character who's very snarky, but also very likable in the sense that he wants to do the right thing, and he's trying his hardest to do the right thing, and we can see that inside of the film. He wants to go straight, and that's very inspirational to me. Put it all together, you get a great film, but also a really great origin story inside of the MCU that's very important to the MCU. it has to come in at number 1. Alright guys, that is it for the ranking. Please know that everything that I did say in this video was just my very own opinion. My list was certainly not the right list, it was just my list, and you're free to comment down below your ranking of all 12 MCU origin films ranked from the worst to the best, just like me. Or you could just do your favor, or you could just add in all of the MCU films. It does not matter. Please don't forget to check out that Twitter that's going to pop up on your screen right now, and also don't forget to check out that MCU playlist. That link is always in the description. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but yeah, I do have a podcast. It's called The Regular Podcast. That link is always in the description, and we just uploaded our Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings spoiler review over there on that channel. You guys can go over there and check it out. It's fun. We had a great discussion. We have some debates. We have some arguments, but it's all in good fun. Go over there and check it out. Go over there and check out the legendary intro, because if you have not seen that legendary intro, you are in for a treat. Go over there to The Regular Podcast. It's anything but. With that being said, like, comment, and subscribe, guys, and I will see you all next time. Peace.